medical affairs, right? We kind of think of them as like the behind-the-scenes folks in pharma.
Yeah.
But, sometimes in some companies, medical affairs, they're like a real powerhouse. Driving strategy, big impact on decisions. Makes you wonder, like, what's the secret sauce?
Mm-hmm.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into medical affairs and their not-so-secret weapon, strategic thinking.
I like it.
So we've got two really insightful videos from the Sky Health Learning Academy YouTube channel to really unpack how science, business, and patient care, how it all, comes together in this field.
Yeah.
One thing that really jumped out at me, was how medical affairs, they can have such different levels of influence, even in the same company.
Right.
It's almost like they need to speak different languages depending on who they're talking to.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think that difference in influence, it often comes down to, how well medical affairs professionals, how well they understand and apply the principles of strategic thinking. The first video, the one we're gonna dive into first, it lays out this framework of 6 subdomains.
Okay.
That are crucial for success in this area.
6 subdomains. Okay, so let's break that down.
Sure.
What's the first one?
The first one is overview and vision.
Okay.
And it really emphasizes medical affairs as this bridge,
Right.
between like all the exciting things happening in clinical research and the very real needs of patients.
Got it.
So imagine them as like the connectors, making sure that science translates into, real world solutions.
Right.
And guiding all of this is this clear strategic vision.
So it's not just about knowing the science,
Sure.
it's about knowing how to like actually make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the second subdomain, medical insights.
Okay.
It dives into how medical affairs actually gathers the information, right, that's needed to form this strategic vision. So think clinical trial data, market research, and these conversations with key opinion leaders, or KOLs.
KOLs. Okay. Could you tell us a little bit more about KOLs? What are they exactly?
Right.
And like how do they contribute to this whole strategic process?
So key opinion leaders, they're typically physicians or researchers, and they're like highly respected in their fields. They've got this, really deep knowledge of specific disease areas, and they're often involved in clinical trials, research, things like that.
Okay.
So medical affairs teams, they engage with them to get insights on like the latest scientific advancements, treatment trends, and most importantly, I think the unmet needs of patients.
So it's like getting the perspective of like the real experts
Exactly.
who are seeing patients every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just, sort of casual chats over coffee, right?
All right.
Medical affairs professionals, they need this systematic approach to collecting and analyzing data from these KOL engagements. And this data becomes like so valuable for making those informed decisions and assessing, are we actually being effective?
So are we kind of like putting a puzzle together here?
Yeah.
We need all the pieces from different sources.
That's a great analogy.
And then we see the big picture, right?
Exactly.
And we can make a winning strategy.
Yeah. And speaking of making sure all the pieces fit together, right?
Yeah.
The third subdomain is launch excellence.
Launch excellence.
And this really highlights how strategic thinking needs to happen like well before a product's even ready to launch.
Right, yeah.
Like way beforehand.
Especially when we're talking about, new medications coming to market and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me more about launch excellence.
So launch excellence is really all about, medical affairs playing this crucial role in bridging the gap between the clinical evidence, all that science, and the healthcare professionals who are going to be prescribing it. They need to like anticipate potential challenges, tailor their communication strategies, and really ensure that that launch is successful, both from like a scientific and a commercial perspective.
It's almost like conducting an orchestra.
Right, yeah.
You got to make sure all the instruments are in tune.
Yeah.
And playing together to create that beautiful symphony.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And just like a conductor needs to make sure that orchestra performs flawlessly, medical affairs teams, they need to excel at operational excellence, which is our fourth subdomain.
Okay. Operational excellence.
Yeah.
Is it just about making sure things run smoothly?
It's more than that.
Yeah.
Operational excellence is about ensuring those strategic plans are actually viable, that they can be executed effectively.
Yeah.
So think efficiency, adaptability, and constantly striving to improve processes. It's about having the right resources, infrastructure, talent, all of that in place to actually achieve those strategic goals
Sounds like the backbone of making those ideas actually work, actually happen.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And now, let's move on to the medical strategic plan, our fifth subdomain.
Okay. The medical strategic plan. This sounds like, the roadmap for medical affairs.
It is the roadmap.
Okay.
The medical strategic plan, it outlines those goals, tactics, and key performance indicators, or KPIs.
Right.
Think of it as like this dynamic document that evolves as the healthcare landscape changes, right?
Okay.
So it aligns with the organization's overall goals while addressing the, specific needs within, whatever that therapeutic area is.
Okay. So you said dynamic document, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more about, why is it so important that this plan is flexible?
That's a great question. I mean, the healthcare industry, it's constantly evolving. New research is emerging, regulations change, patient needs change, right?
Right.
A rigid plan just wouldn't be able to adapt to all of that. So the medical strategic plan, it needs to be like a living document. It needs to be able to adjust based on new information, new insights.
So it's like a GPS that can reroute if you hit an unexpected detour.
Exactly.
Yes, like that.
And speaking of staying on track, right? The final subdomain, value and impact, it really brings us to the heart of why strategic thinking matters so much in medical affairs.
Okay, value and impact.
Yeah,
That seems like kind of the ultimate measure of success for any strategy.
it really is. Value and impact, it emphasizes how important it is to be able to demonstrate the tangible benefits of all these medical affairs activities.
Yeah.
So this includes measuring the impact on patient outcomes, advancing scientific knowledge, and even contributing to the overall success of the organization.
So it's not just about doing the work.
Right.
You got to show how it's making a difference.
You gotta be able to show that return on investment
Yeah.
for all the effort, all the resources
Yeah.
dedicated to medical affairs initiatives.
That's fantastic. I think that was a really great overview of the 6 subdomains.
Yeah.
It's clear that all these elements, they're all interconnected.
Yeah,
They all contribute to the success of medical affairs as a whole.
for sure.
But before we jump into that second video, I'm kind of curious, based on your own experience, is there a particular subdomain that kind of resonates with you the most?
That's a great question. I think what resonates with me most is the idea of, I think what resonates most with me is the idea of medical affairs as this bridge between science and patient care. In my own work, I've seen firsthand how strategic thinking can actually lead to breakthroughs that improve, real people's lives. For instance, I was involved in this project where
Oh, that's fascinating. I can
Yeah.
only imagine the impact that those strategic decisions had on the patients
yeah.
involved. Really highlights, how crucial medical affairs is in taking those scientific advancements
Yeah.
and making them, make a tangible benefit.
Absolutely. And speaking of, how quickly things can change, that second video we've got lined up, it really dives into that.
Right.
The need for strategic thinking in this ever-evolving pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
What stood out to you about that?
One thing I was really struck by was how the video emphasized the need for medical affairs professionals to anticipate trends, right? And make informed decisions about long-term investments.
Yeah.
It's not just about reacting to what's happening right now,
Right.
but about, positioning the organization for success in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's about looking beyond that immediate horizon
Right.
and considering those long-term implications of every decision.
Right.
I mean, the pharmaceutical landscape, it's so dynamic. You've got new discoveries, regulations, market forces. All of this stuff is constantly shaping the playing field.
Yeah. It's like a chess game
Right.
where you got to think several moves ahead.
Exactly.
To outmaneuver your opponent.
Yeah.
You can't just focus on where the pieces are at this very moment.
Right.
You got to anticipate where they're going next.
That's a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
And, just like in chess, strategic thinking in medical affairs involves analyzing that competitive landscape,
Right.
understanding, what are the strengths and weaknesses of our own organization,
Yeah.
and then making calculated decisions. That'll lead to that winning outcome.
Right. So the video also mentioned how strategic thinking is crucial when it comes to managing external partnerships.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Why are these partnerships so important?
That's an excellent point. I think in today's pharmaceutical industry, collaboration is key,
Yeah.
right? Medical affairs teams, they often work with, external partners like
Yeah.
academic institutions, patient advocacy groups, even other pharma companies.
No.
And these partnerships, they can provide, access to like cutting edge research, new technologies, just a broader network of expertise.
So it's kind of like leveraging like the strengths of different organizations
Precise.
to achieve that shared goal.
Exactly. But managing these partnerships effectively, it requires, a strategic mindset.
Right.
You got to carefully assess potential partners,
Yeah.
clearly define like roles and responsibilities,
Right.
establish communication channels to make sure everyone's like aligned on the strategic objectives.
Sounds like kind of a delicate balancing act, especially when
Yeah.
you have, multiple stakeholders and they all have like potentially different priorities.
It can be,
Yeah.
but that's where strong leadership and communication skills become absolutely paramount.
Right.
Medical affairs leaders, they got to be able to navigate these complexities and ensure that all those parties, they're working together toward that common goal.
Okay. The video also highlighted how strategic thinking, it's a core competency for everyone in medical affairs,
Right.
not just those in, leadership roles. Why is that so important?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, in today's like fast-paced environment, everyone in medical affairs, they need to be able to think strategically from like the individual contributors all the way up to the senior executives.
Right.
It's not just about following orders, it's about understanding the bigger picture,
Yeah.
anticipating challenges and, proactively seeking solutions.
So it's about empowering like every team member
Yeah.
to think critically, contribute ideas,
Yes.
be a part of that strategic decision-making process.
Exactly. And when everyone on the team embraces that mindset, you create this like culture of innovation, collaboration,
Right.
and it allows medical affairs to be, more agile, responsive, and ultimately more successful
More successful, yeah.
in achieving those goals.
So we've covered a lot of ground in these two videos.
We have.
From the 6 subdomains, right, to
Yeah.
the importance of like adaptability and collaboration.
Yeah.
But I want to bring back to our listener for a second.
Sure.
What does all this mean for someone who's working in medical affairs?
Yeah.
Or maybe, aspiring to work in the field?
That's a great question. I think the key takeaway is that strategic thinking, it's not like a nice to have skill.
Right.
It's essential for success in medical affairs.
Right.
It's about constantly seeking new knowledge, challenging assumptions,
Yeah.
and looking for those ways to add value.
So it's like a continuous journey,
Really
right?
is. It is.
Of learning, adapting, refining your skills.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about, climbing that career ladder.
Right.
It's about like making a real difference
Exactly.
in the lives of patients.
At the end of the day, that's what drives most people in medical affairs, that desire to improve patient outcomes and contribute to the advancement of healthcare. And strategic thinking, it's that compass that helps guide us toward that destination.
I love that. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive.
It has.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
If you could distill everything we've discussed
Yeah.
into like one key piece of advice for someone who wants to, enhance their strategic thinking skills,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think my advice would be to never stop asking why.
Oh, I like that.
Be curious. Always be looking for those connections between like the science, the business, and the patient experience.
Yeah. Like what's the bigger picture here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about connecting those dots.
That's such valuable advice. Cultivating that curiosity. Always seeking to connect the dots. It's so important. It's been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
I feel like we've really uncovered some key insights about strategic thinking in medical affairs. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought to ponder. If you could design like the perfect medical affairs strategy,
Okay.
what would be the key ingredients and how would you know it was actually working?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
It really challenges us to think critically about everything we've talked about today.
Yeah.
If I were designing that like perfect strategy, I'd start by like ensuring that it was deeply rooted in a clear understanding of patient needs.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. That's like the North Star, always,
Right.
Then I'd make sure it was like data-driven, drawing insights from a variety of sources,
Yeah.
including those KOL engagements we talked about. And of course, it would need to be flawlessly executed
Yeah.
with like a real focus on operational excellence. But here's the real key.
Yeah.
That perfect strategy would have like built-in mechanisms to measure its impact on both patient outcomes and business objectives.
Yeah.
You need to be able to demonstrate that your work is making a difference.
That's so important.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just, have this brilliant plan.
Right.
You got to be able to prove it's actually delivering results.
You got it.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this deep dive into the fascinating world of strategic thinking in medical affairs.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
And remember, listeners, strategic thinking, it's a skill that can benefit anyone in any field.
Oh, absolutely.
So start flexing those strategic muscles and see where they take you.
Love it. That's a wrap on today's deep dive. We'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.